Good morning. Aloha. Well, it's really my pleasure and honor to introduce the president of the University of Hawaii, David Lasner. So some introductory comments here. David holds an AB, summa cum laude, and Phi Beta Kappa in economics, and a master's in computer science from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He earned a PhD in communications and information sciences from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He first came to Hawaii in 1977 when he accepted a one-year contract with the University of Hawaii to plan the transition toward computer-assisted teaching. He never looked back, embracing Hawaii both professionally and personally. In the 35 years that followed, he assumed increasingly greater responsibilities, eventually becoming president for information technology and the chief information officer. Among other achievements, and there are many, David led a statewide, federally funded project that interconnected public schools, libraries, and campuses on 6 islands with fiber optics. David is also the principal investigator of the Maui High Performance Computing Center. In July 2014, David Lasner was appointed as the 15th president of the University of Hawaii. He leads a 10-campus system with its 60,000 students and 10,000 faculty and staff on 6 islands. Believe me, that's a momentous task. Among many other boards, I am proud to say he serves on the board of the Maui Economic Development Board. So here's the rest of the story. David accepted the position of president in a time of turmoil within the university. Hiring freezes, budget cuts, protests, tuition increases, you name it, he got it. A year later, he is the best person the Regents could have selected to take us through this transition and through these really tough challenges. He has restored stability at the university and earned confidence and respect for his leadership. He has accelerated research and innovation in Hawaii and strengthened the capacity of the university to support it. He is unwavering in his dedication to the university, but as importantly, to the people of Hawaii. The Board of Regents reaffirmed their selection of him as president in July 2015. Finally, David is a self-proclaimed geek, and this is an intense job. But when asked what does he do for fun, he hikes and is an avid student of hula. If you don't believe me, check it out on YouTube. You will be amazed. Please help me welcome President David Lasner.
You see, no paper. Aloha kakahiaka kako. Good morning to all of you. It's such a pleasure to be here at AMOS again. I was thinking as I was flying over this morning of the last time I was here. At that time, the S in AMOS stood for supercomputing. That was a temporary aberration. But more on that later. I had a different job at the time, but I really want to thank Jeannie for inviting me here today and for her flexibility in accommodating my schedule. And I have a lot of bosses in this job. It's one of the things that's unique about being a university president. I work for the board, of course. I work for the legislature, and if you ask the faculty, I work for the faculty also. So a few words, and Jeannie described us. We're unique for those of you who are not from Hawaii. Our University of Hawaii system encompasses all public higher education in the state. So if you're, say, in California, you'll have the University of California, the CSUs, the community colleges. We're all of that rolled into one, under one board of regents and one president, who happens to be me right now. For us, that's 7 community colleges, which are spread across 4 islands, 2 baccalaureate campuses on 2 islands, and our world-class research university, UH Manoa, which is the home of many of our flagship research programs. I'll mention some of those. And we also extend to Molokai and Lanai via distance learning, as well as to Hana and other locations that are far enough away from our campuses that public higher education needs a physical home to become more accessible. Earlier this year, our board approved a new set of strategic directions, and I want to just comment on 2 of them as I weave in our work here and how it fits into what's really core for our university and the way we work with this program and really the people of Hawaii throughout the state. The 2 I want to mention are the Hawaii Graduation Initiative and the Hawaii Innovation Initiative. The others that I won't really talk about are 21st century facilities and high-performance, mission-driven system of public higher education. So the Hawaii Graduation Initiative is really focused on our work increasing the educational capital of this state. The best estimates are that, in general, in Hawaii, as throughout most of the country, something like 65% of the jobs in 2020 will require some post-secondary education. So it could be an associate degree, could be a bachelor's, could be a graduate degree. Unfortunately, if that's what the jobs require, there's nowhere in the country that's really ready for this, including Hawaii. Our number right now is about 44%. That's better than many states, but it's clearly not where we have to be. And as the sole provider of public higher education in Hawaii, we have a tremendous responsibility to help address that gap. We have a statewide goal, we call it 55 by 25, meaning by 2025 we want to at least hit 55% of our working age adults with some post-secondary education. The Hawaii Innovation Initiative is the other piece that I'll weave into my brief remarks today. So the University of Hawaii, we're committed to accelerating the growth of our economy. Those of you who are here know that our economy is really driven by 2 things, tourism and direct military spending. And over a number of years, really starting with my predecessor, who was actually here a few years ago, working tightly with the business community, we developed the notion of a Hawaii Innovation Initiative. And the idea is to create a 3rd sector of the economy, basically a $1 billion sector, and we think that really is achievable, focused on research and innovation. So that's not just us at the university, that's everyone involved in the public and private sector in jobs and activities involving research and technology. We're working closely with the private sector and government on this, particularly the private sector, and it's really about creating more high-quality living wage jobs while addressing the challenges and opportunities that face Hawaii, most of which are the same challenges that face the rest of the world today. So to achieve that, we're building on our existing strengths. Those of you who know us, oceanography, marine sciences, energy, Asia-Pacific studies, and of course astronomy, but we want to move more deeply into the health sciences, where we have some real advantages with one of the most ethnically diverse populations in the world, sustainable agriculture, and we're looking, interestingly, at data science, which has not been a traditional strength, but that's an example of an area of infrastructure and capability that we know we need to build up if we're going to succeed and thrive in all of these other areas. And I'll say a little bit more about that shortly. This is a statewide agenda, and we are deeply engaged in it throughout the state. But since I'm here today, a little bit about what we're doing here on Maui. So most people generally associate Mauna Kea with astronomy. We obviously have a constellation of some of the best telescopes in the world, and certainly we're receiving our share of attention over there these days. But our work with astronomy and space surveillance actually started here on Haleakala. And it wasn't the Department of Defense that first tracked satellites from Haleakala. It was, in fact, the University of Hawaii. In 1956, UH constructed a roll-off roof observatory to house the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory's Baker-Nunn Super Schmidt satellite tracking camera. This is 7 years before UH leased the summit for what is now known as the Maui Space Surveillance Complex. And that's also years before we began our work at Mauna Kea, which in fact was a result of starting to get astronomers in Hawaii, here at Haleakala and also at Mauna Loa, who sort of looked across and said, that bigger mountain over there looks like it would be good for astronomy. And the Hilo community really drove then Governor Burns to make some investments that would help develop astronomy on Mauna Kea, which truly is a massive global enterprise these days. And we continue, of course, our active program of science and stewardship, equally important here on Haleakala. Our Pan-STARRS program, I think many of you are familiar with, utilizes groundbreaking camera technology developed at the University of Hawaii to provide world-class wide field imaging that enables us to detect and characterize a wide variety of near-Earth objects, including those who threaten, those that may threaten safety here on Earth. To my roots, intriguing to me is that terabytes of Pan-STARRS data are generated each night, analyzed, and distributed. And like almost all big science today, this is a global project. The Pan-STARRS Consortium in particular represents 10 institutions in 4 countries, all working together to support the great science going on. And I won't say that much about MSSS. I know that's what most of you are engaged with. But I will mention that since 2001, the University of Hawaii has operated and managed the Maui High Performance Computing Center. Jeannie mentioned MHPCC. That's the other major Air Force program here on Maui. And this is one of only five distributed supercomputing resource centers operated by the Department of Defense in the country. MHPCC supports mission requirements here on Maui, of course, but also with customers and activities from throughout the country. Again, while not the focus of this conference, but fitting into the agenda of science and technology, innovation, and great jobs here on Maui. Since 2006, UH has also been the managing partner for the Pacific Disaster Center, one of the tenants in Jeannie's building. We're happy to be there in the Maui Research and Technology Park. This is a major DoD program that goes back about 2 decades, started with congressional sponsorship, but fully embraced now as a program of record by the Department of Defense. And the Pacific Disaster Center is focused on applying advanced geospatial and information gathering technologies to create more resilient communities. It started with a focus on Hawaii and the Asia Pacific region, and it has been incredibly successful. It's now working not just with PACOM, but the other combatant commands, other US federal agencies, lots of groups within Hawaii. Private sector companies routinely subcontract with us to do work, and we've engaged directly with many countries with active programs. In fact, the key folks there are almost always on travel in Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Japan, Philippines, Korea, working throughout the region with some of the best technologies in the world embedded in the Pentagon and the disaster management centers around this region. This is work, I should say, that's not just institutional, but this is pretty personal for me. I actually worked on the teams and/or led our work to compete for these contracts back in 2000, 2001 to win MHPCC, in 2006 to win the Pacific Disaster Center. I still continue actually as the principal investigator. It's one of my hobby jobs being president. But we have great executive directors looking after these programs. Mike Marbury is here, who really is the executive director of MHPCC, looking after that program. And Ray Shirkodai just does an incredible job at PDC with his team. And these programs of global significance also give me a chance to exercise my geek side, my continuing interest in global networking. And I think for most of you, you realize that as science has become more collaborative, more interdisciplinary, more global, more data-driven, we're all increasingly reliant on advanced networks to support data analysis, modeling, visualization, and interpersonal collaboration on science, working together in real time and asynchronously to develop ideas. Over the past couple decades, and Jeannie mentioned my project connecting all of the schools, libraries, and campuses in Hawaii with fiber optic capabilities and gigabit networking speeds. But I've also spent a tremendous amount of time making sure that Hawaii stays connected to the US and to the world through networks like Internet 2, like DREN, and our global counterparts in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, and so forth. It's fascinating work, and I'm starting to see some of it's actually one of the things you get to do as a president, where you can elevate some of those conversations with our partners in other countries and with federal agencies. This is a tool that supports science and education, and I want to highlight Dr. Jason Lee, who's next door. He is truly a global leader in scientific visualization, and he's moved far beyond that. We recruited him as part of our Hawaii Innovation Initiative from the University of Illinois, Chicago, probably the foremost electronic visualization lab in the country. He has joined us here, and you should take a look at what he's doing. His new lab, he's really taken to Hawaii, the Laboratory for Advanced Visualization and Applications, LAVA, get it? Is really showing how they can ingest big data from anywhere, visualize it, support collaboration. And the key is really to visualize, to enable scientists to gain new insights and enable new discoveries anywhere, including collaboratively. And I think he's next door with Dr. Karen Meach, one of our astrobiologists, who's been collaborating with him. The technology is there to empower other science, and that's a great example of how we're using our emerging capacity in big data and visualization to improve the science we're able to do, in this case, astrobiology. We also, of course, collaborate directly on the science here. Stuart Jeffries of our Institute for Astronomy here on Maui is an excellent example of our continuing relationship with the space situational analysis community. Over the past 10 years, he's been awarded something like $7.9 million from the Air Force to develop technologies and algorithms for improving the images collected by the telescopes here on Haleakala. None of this can happen without a great workforce, and that truly takes a village. I want to congratulate our hosts here, MEDB. They just do remarkable work in Hawaii and nationally in building the education pipeline in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. In fact, if you wander around here, if we haven't yet been invaded by the middle school kids, you should check it out. But the work that MEDB does is just essential, and not just to this island. They're really supporting us throughout the state in programs and activities. We're really focused on bringing throughout the state in bringing in underrepresented populations. A lot of this started with the Women in Technology program, but we also look at local populations, Native Hawaiians and others who have traditionally been underrepresented in STEM careers. Truly, MEDB is as good as anyone in the country at doing this, and if any of you are interested, I'd encourage you to talk with Jeannie or Leslie Wilkins is wandering around here somewhere, I know. Actually, she's probably escorting the middle school kids, making sure they don't get in too much trouble. We also engage with our campus here, UH Maui College. So they created a Bachelor of Applied Science in Engineering Technology. This is a new degree, and applied baccalaureate degrees are a relatively new trend in American higher education. This is a follow-on from the Associate of Science in Electronic and Computer Engineering Technology, and this was developed in close concert with employers here on the island to make sure that our college here was able to develop the kinds of workforce needed here as well. And this has been really important as we're finding internships and employment opportunities with our students. Our students are working next door also, so you get a chance to talk with our UH Maui College students. In addition to Jason and Karen next door, we're also featuring the work of Jeff Kuhn, our expert on solar telescopes and optics, who's been helpful in bringing the Daniel K. Inouye telescope here to Maui. In addition to the work that's directly here, we've also been doing an incredible amount of work in satellite payloads. We've got a small satellite CubeSat program that launched. Last month, we had a group of community college students from throughout the state who launched a payload out of Wallops on the East Coast. And while the science was important, what was really most impressive to us was a team of local kids from multiple islands working at the same level as the best undergraduate and graduate students from the best research universities around the country. And that's what we're able to achieve when we invest in our local kids. And that's our pipeline work is intended to help all of them support you and get great jobs while they're doing it. We've done a lot of work in taking this into the community. I want to acknowledge our new Vice President for Research and Innovation, Vasilis Sirmos is here and will be around today if you want to chat with them. We started a new accelerator program, which helps us bring the best ideas of our students and faculty into the community, helping explore where there are commercial applications. Again, this is a statewide program. In fact, Jeff Kuhn was in our first accelerator cohort. We're looking at some of the technologies he and his team have developed here on Maui to explore the commercial applications. It's good for him, good for the university, and good for the creation of jobs and the economy on Maui in Hawaii. We're also developing an innovation lab that's physically starting at UH Manoa, but this is based on some of the ideas that we saw at the D School at Stanford. It's pretty well known. This is the home of design thinking as well. Much of this work is done through building bridges with the business community. We're looking at identifying the barriers to collaboration, access to our facilities, and collaboration by our faculty. Just next month, actually next week now, the Hawaii Business Roundtable, which has truly been one of our great partners, they have been co-hosting with us a conference called Future Focus, the Hawaii Innovation Initiatives Forum on Energy, Cybersecurity, and more. And this is bringing together great speakers from the federal government, much like this event, but around cybersecurity and energy from NSA, PACOM, Navy, Small Business Administration, the EDA, Department of Energy, and more. And our goal is to be linking academia, the business sector, and government, federal and state, to solve problems and create great opportunities. And we'll be doing this annually, much as AMOS has established its credentials as the premier SSA event here. So it's a pleasure to be with you and get to share a little bit about what we're up to. We're deeply engaged, as you can tell, in supporting this mission here on Maui, but also the broader work throughout Hawaii and throughout the nation that I know many of you are engaged in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay on Maui. I know many of you are repeat visitors, probably know what to do, but I encourage you to explore the island and enjoy truly Maui no Kauai. Aloha.